On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk inflation surpassing salaries, a day one mindset, and CES 2023. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
This is ResiWeek, episode 357, a day one challenge. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, we have Mr. Arlen Schweiger. He is the managing editor at CE Pro. How you doing, Arlen?
I'm doing great, Matt. Always good to be back here, and thanks for having me on right before the holiday season.
Yeah, we're getting them out of the way. We're on the countdown now, as my kids keep reminding me.
December already. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, we're getting closer and closer. Then we've got my good buddy, Mr. Mark Feinberg. He is the president of Home Theater Advisors in New York. How you doing, Mr. Mark?
I'm doing good, Matt. A little disappointed in my Patriots this season, but not to be unexpected.
No. You know who I'm not disappointed in? Dallas's defense. Holy crap. 5 takeaways yesterday.
Yeah, I wish I'd had them in fantasy last night.
It's the Colts, let's be fair.
Fair point, Matt Ryan.
Sorry, Indy fans, but and my friends in Indy, but dang, they look good. It was great.
Mark, I'm right there with you on the Patriots, unfortunately.
Good to hear.
I'm not. I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. All right, gentlemen, let's kick this off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. 4 out of 5 workers say that salary is not keeping up with inflation. 92% of global workers saying that inflation and recession are affecting careers, finances, etc. 85% are considering changing careers. This comes from a study by Remote.co's their work and financial wellness report that surveyed 1,100 global professionals last month or 2 months ago. Nearly half are specifying inflation and recession concerns that have pushed them to look for a new job. 31% said they took a side job or started freelancing. 45% said they were following stricter household or personal budgets. And 23% said they've allocated more money towards savings or an emergency fund. Now, we say all that, and this should shock really no one. But Arlen, when you see these numbers come out, when you see the tone and the tenor of this type of report, right? It's not really good. It seems bad. And there is always that dream of, hey, I'm going to go get a better paying job. In the corporate sector, that may be a fairly easy thing to do. In the residential integration world, that's not always a simple solution to have. Is there anything that we can do as integrators, as an industry, to try and combat the inflation and the recession concerns that are making people want to look for a better paying job, or look at, finding ways to get paid more, bill more for clients that want to pay less?
Sure. Well, Matt, one thing that we see in the custom integration industry is that a lot of the transfer of one job to another is through poaching. It's through people, companies hiring from other companies within the industry. So why is someone going to leave, when the grass, clearly isn't always greener? We all know that. So what's going to make someone leave? Basically the salary. So what do? You do things more like having a remote worker. If that's what they want, they could be involved in a situation where each morning before they have to go to the job site, they have to take their own vehicle to the warehouse, to the office to prep for the job. that could be, a lot of miles for some people and a lot of commute. And in this economy right now, that's still not a great thing. If there are different ways to do that, and talking with other integrators, some of them have provided things like that where they're letting them use the vehicles. That might be use of a company vehicle where they can have it parked, have it packaged, and maybe the night before the job, it's all loaded up, ready to go, so they can just go straight to the job site using the company vehicle. But perks like that, when I talk to integrators at things like our Total Tech Summit, it's integrators who have thought through and tried doing little things like that where they can kind of boost company morale. Those little things go a long way. Certainly other types of things, just bonuses, little things like more 401k options, insurance options. Certainly all of that can help keep workers. If it's something where you can't quite increase the salaries, if you're able to kick in more with a company match for 401k, that could offset a lower paying job for some people if they know that they're socking it away for the future.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Mark, obviously we are all financial experts and economists here, so we can speak to this with a high degree of certainty. But this is going to be a very interesting period going forward. And to Arlen's point, poaching is typically how things have happened, at least the last couple of years. But there comes a point where if you are not careful, you are overpaying for talent. And that at least has been the response that I'm getting from a lot of the people I talk to, is that they need people and they're having to overpay to get people. All the same, they've got clients who are trying to be responsible, we'll say. Not necessarily scaling back, but they're trying to be responsible and not necessarily be outrageous with some of their improvements that they're doing. Is there anything that we can do to weather the storm and try and find a way to almost make money out of nothing? Because that's kind of what we have to do. It's really easy to say, hey, we're going to give you a company car. But again, we've got to pay for that additional insurance or that additional mileage or that additional gas. It's got to come from somewhere.
Right.
What do we do? Can we do anything, or do we just have to do the best that we actually can?
I mean, I think there's a few things. For example, as opposed to, and what Arlen was talking about is very common in corporate America, right? Is you increase the benefits if you can't give the salary. Can you give more PTO days? Can you give better 401k match? PTO days are in some cases free to us, although it does cost us a day of billing, right? If we give the person a day off, then we may not get as much work done. It's a little bit different in corporate America. It's pretty much free in corporate America to give an extra PTO day. Bonuses is a good one-time thing, so that we had a really good year this year, and I tied bonuses to the year we had. So my guys got a really good bonus a couple weeks ago, and hopefully that will keep them happy for the next few months, because with the price of real estate these days and what's happening with interest rates, we may not be in this flush of cash for very long. I may not have as good a 2023. So the one-time payments, if it's an annual bonus, a quarterly bonus, as long as it's not expected every year, it's rewarding people when you do well, but not locking yourself into a long-term commitment. And the other option, and then, at this point, can you raise rates? Can you explore secondary or tertiary categories? Are you not doing lighting? Are you not doing shading? Can you sell lighting fixtures? I haven't gotten there yet, but are there other categories you can undertake that don't require you to really build headcount very much, but will add to your bottom line to afford, so you can pay people a little bit better? As you were saying, people feel like they're overpaying. The problem with paying the average is when you pay the average, you get average. Do you want average employees? Or do you want better than average employees? If you want better than average installers and employees, you've got to pay better than average. So how do you get there? And it's there's only so many levers we can pull. It's our labor rates, it's our profit margins on product, which is relatively fixed because most things have an MSRP. And it's it's growing sales, which in many ways is adding more categories of business.
So let me push back just for 1 second before we move on. I get very cautious when I hear people talking about adding essentially new verticals, right? If it's a very close adjacent field,
yes,
sure. The investment into that is typically not that big. But at a time when, and again, I'm not trying to be a fearmonger. I'm not trying to go down that vein, but I'm trying to be aware more so than what I hear most people trying to be. At a time when there is some uncertainty, is that the time to double down on your existing business, or is that the time to try and expand? Because there are two very strong opinions on that, depending who you talk to.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you have the confidence in your sales to go out and drum up more business and either close a higher percentage of jobs or generate more leads, stick with what you know, right? Why bring on something that you're not used to, that's risky, that, is going to take some investment to get up to speed, is probably going to take some screw ups that you're going to eat. If you can sell more of what you're doing already. But if you feel like your ability to sell more of the same is limited, what's your next option?
Matt, I can tell you that at the last couple of dealer conferences that I've been to, one was our Total Tech Summit that was at the end of October, and that was the hosted event that we have with our CE Pro 100 companies. We also have the commercial and security tracks. And then I went to the HTSA fall conference a couple weeks before that, and they were talking about, just what you were saying, and they were addressing it in terms of, here's the time to more so double down on your operations, making it lean, and your marketing efforts. People at companies, organizations like HTSA were saying, we have a lot of resources that integrators aren't using as much as they can, and where right now they can really do it to improve their websites, to improve their social media reach, things like if you're going on a project, now's the time, hey, start shooting some video, see what you could do on the video side and grow your YouTube channel, but get some more marketing in as well during this time right now. Like you said, just in case.
And also your point, Arlen, can you run leaner? Now that inventories are getting back into shape, can you, bleed down your inventory a little bit? I haven't had a lot of problems. I mean, Sonos is back in good shape. Control 4 has been in good shape. I'm not a Crestron house, so I'm not worried about that. I don't know where Lutron is, but I don't have any issues getting things right now. An occasional skew here or there, but it's not a wholesale issue like it was a year or two ago. Can you bleed down some inventory? Can you run a little bit leaner? Can you be more efficient? To Arlen's point from earlier, can the truck get packed at night so in the morning the guys can be on the job site, so you're not burning an hour of them coming to the shop and packing up and then commuting to the job site? How can you be more efficient? How can you be leaner? What can you maybe outsource that will allow you to focus on growing the business? Are you doing your own accounting? Should you be doing your own accounting? I mean, No, you should not. Exactly. No. Right. Are you sitting there tinkering with your website? Are you spending all day on your business, but it's stuff you shouldn't be doing because it's not your expertise? Outsource it and focus on growing the business.
Yeah, that's a really good point. All right, gentlemen, let's change topics for a second to a story that comes to us from Residential Systems, getting into a day one mindset from a good friend of the show, Mr. Henry Clifford. He's going to be very disappointed he wasn't on the show to talk about his own story, because that's typically what we do. Read through this article. It's a really good take from Henry, which should surprise no one who follows Henry. He's talking about the fact that he's been in business for 20 years, and sometimes you just get caught up in the day-to-day. And he takes a look at Amazon's embracing of the attitude called day one, where essentially you view every day as your first day on the job, your first day running the company, as if you literally just bought your company that day and you're starting fresh. So you come in with fresh eyes looking at things. And it's a really, really good article that makes you think, which is one of the things we love about Henry. Mark, one of the things that I love about this article, but from a practicality stance, I typically have a hard time with this concept. It's really easy to say, hey, I'm going to spend every day looking at my business as if I just got into it. And I'm going to find all of those inefficiencies, as we kind of talked about earlier, and all those little things that we do really well, the things we can improve on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's also really difficult to do that while you're actually trying to run your business and get stuff done. Is there a way that you can balance trying to look at things objectively and with fresh eyes, but at the same time realizing that it's not a pie in the sky situation? You can't just sit there and be like, this is really great. We should look at hiring that guy, firing that guy, doing this, doing that. At some point, you actually have to either get your boots on the ground or put your butt in the seat and do some actual work.
Right. I mean, listen, you can start from scratch every day, but then I don't know how, then you're always kind of rebuilding, it feels like. I'm a fan of more the Japanese, 1980s Kanban. It's small improvements, figuring out what's not working for you and how do you improve it. Back to what we just talked about. Are you not? All the operational things we talked about, 3 minutes ago, are all little improvements. And there's things I've taken away from this show. Different software packages for either for quoting or for doing, for marking up drawings or running your website, are the things you can do bit by bit, and set strategic goals or even tactical goals to over the coming year. What do you want to improve? And pick the top, 2 to 4 hits that you want to attack in the next year, saying what do you want to improve, as opposed to saying, if I just bought the company today, that can be overwhelming, especially for a small company. I'm a small shop, and for me to look at it and go, what do I want to do? What would I do if this was from day one? I think that would be a little overwhelming to me, and I wouldn't be selling anything. And I'm the back office, I'm the sales, I'm the programming, I'm the marketing. Now, while I outsource a lot of that, I'm still the one approving all of that, right? So I've been doing the strategic planning of all of that. So it's hard I would think, for me to be wholesale new every day.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Arlen, something that, again, this brings to mind, but also that we've seen talked about, again, at events like the ones that you mentioned earlier, and what I'm seeing floating around both the business world and the custom integration world, is that due to, again, some of those economic outlooks that we're seeing, 2023 is the year, if you've never done it, to really work on your business, to really dig deep into what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it. Is that not kind of, to a degree, go part and parcel with this day one approach to really dig through all those processes and see what's working, what's not, and cut the chaff that's not working?
Yeah, I think absolutely. The thing that you want to do is figure out, to what Mark was saying. I mean, you're not going to go in and think about overhauling things, but it's certain things that you can do in pieces at a time. I think one thing that you want to do, you want to evaluate your staff. And I guess for this conversation, what are we talking about? A typical integrator, 8 to 14 people, maybe, if you want, 10 to 20, somewhere around there.
That's not your typical integrator.
Well, I think we find for our typical CE Pro reader for our state of the industry, I think we're at about eight or so. But you want to go in and make sure that, for your staff, and we've seen this recently where we've had more mergers and acquisition activity in the industry. It's one thing. So, it could be a true scenario, not so much in the distant future, where your company might be considered acquired by another company. And, the first thing as a CEO, you want to go in there and you want buy-in from everyone in the company that you just bought. And part of that is, sometimes you have to go in and talk. I'm going to go in and talk to everyone individually, and I'm going to survey them, and I'm going to say, what do you think is working right in the company? What do you think is working wrong in the company? It's always good to have that, and staff, sometimes they don't feel like their voice is going to be recognized. But if you feel like that you need to make some changes, who would know better than to what changes you need to make than, the employees themselves? So they might have some very good ideas on ways to improve things. I did a profile back in the fall of a company out here in North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina, Pair Electronics, and it had grown. It had tripled over the last 3 or 4 years. And to manage that, the owner he basically went out and he hired someone as kind of operations manager had him basically kind of for like a year consultancy gig and come in there and ask those questions. He, surveyed everyone that was going on there and said, how are you getting along with the owner? What can we do better with communications? What can we do better? Do you feel like you have some sort of career path with the employees? They want to make sure that they're, going somewhere. So I think if you're taking over a company and you're thinking about different things you could do, is just sort of look at your people in a different way and what you can do for them. And that's, the first way to start achieving results. It's just, really and then go from there. And you talk about all the processes. We were talking about the efficiencies. And once you start figuring out and evaluating your people, you can have them take personality tests. You can figure out who, people might not be in a good position. They might not be in the right position for them, but because they've been doing that for the last, 15 years at a company, maybe it's time that they want to try a different position and they might be better suited to one, but they haven't had the chance. So I think that's something that could, very much help toward transforming a company.
Yeah, that's a really good point. All right, gentlemen, let's hit our last story of the day real quick. This comes to us from Residential Systems. CES 2023 is on track for record post-pandemic growth, and it's adding a conference program. Now, you might have caught my chuckle, and that's because they're saying that CES 2023 would be bigger, 50% bigger than CES 2022, which was an incredibly small year. So the sample size might be a little entertaining, we'll say. Arlen, let me start with you just real quick on this. Obviously, they expect this to be bigger. They've got something like 2,400 exhibitors that they're expecting. It's going to be one of the largest global auto shows. 100,000 attendees are expected to be there, with a third of them from outside the U.S. This is all looking fine and dandy. How do you think this year will compare to years pre-pandemic?
Right. And I was going to say, Matt, for anyone who doesn't know, CE Pro, we're owned by Emerald, people who own CEDIA Expo. That is one of a zillion expos that we have. We're a huge trade show company, much more so than a media company. And one thing that we do, we look at, or when we have company-wide meetings, we talk about things in terms of pre-pandemic, comparing them to 2019. And we've looked at shows, and you can see that it's the numbers are favorable that we've seen from the swath of various industries that we do in our company. We've seen some really favorable numbers compared to pre-pandemic. I think for CES, I think they will probably look at some similar growth. I know obviously from last year, I know people saw big changes that they had to the LVCC. Yeah, I know there were some empty spaces from what I understand of what people who attended had seen. One of the things that did catch my eye in that briefing was about the third of the audience, the attendees, expected to come internationally. Now, of course, we don't know where internationally they'll be coming from, but we do know that in the past, pre-pandemic, of course, CES has been it's had a large Asian basically population that attends the show. My question would be, are we going to see more people coming from Europe? Are they still going to be coming from Asia? Let's see what happens there. But I expect I think it'll be probably pretty close to the pre-pandemic numbers. I think it'll definitely be strong. And you're not going to have the large companies like the display manufacturers that were still not there last year in some instances, that really cause a lot of domino effect with who winds up attending the show.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Speaking of attending the show, Mark, let's wrap with you on this. Is there any reason for an HCP to show up to CES, to deal with the monstrosity that is CES? I know there's a pavilion, and I know a lot of our manufacturer partners are there. But why? Why would we go? Would we go? Would you go? Would anyone go?
It's hard to answer because I've never gone, right?
Well, there's an answer right there.
Because everybody I've spoken to said, Mark, are you in the business of selling cell phone cases? And I've said no. They've said, then don't go to CES. I've never been. It feels like it would be just, from what I've read about it, from what I've talked to people who've gone, it's overwhelming. what we would be looking for is, there is the pavilion, but other things we look at so scattered about and hard to find the wheat through the chaff. It's just a bit of a waste of time, and it's incredibly expensive. Hotel rooms are out of sight in Vegas for that. It's much more reasonable to go to Cedia, obviously. I haven't found a reason to go. It hasn't felt like something I've needed to attend, and I think a lot of HTPs feel the same way.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Although I've got one friend from Texas who swears by it, and he berates me every year for not going. Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not going. I'm not doing it. All right, gentlemen, let's wrap it there. Thank you both for joining us. Mark, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Home Theater Advisors, where can they do that?
Best is the website, www.hometheateradvisors.com. Email me, mark@hometheateradvisors.com, or our Facebook page is Home Theater Advisors.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Arlen, if people want to connect with you, learn more about CE Pro, where can they do that?
Sure, they can go to cepro.com as always. They can find me on Twitter at Arlen Schweiger. And if you happen to get the spelling on my name, you can also find me on LinkedIn there as well.
Excellent. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter at Matt D. Scott and most other social platforms. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.